FM News Talk 97.1. On-demand audio.
Right now, we're honored to have Heather MacDonald back with us. She's a contributing editor for the City Journal. She's a fellow at the Manhattan Institute and the author of the book, The War on Cops. Heather, thanks for joining us again.
Well, thanks for having me on, Mark. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. What was your reaction to Donald Trump's immigration speech?
I thought it was an absolutely fabulous speech that takes him back to the roots and why people supported his candidacy in the first place. He's absolutely right that immigration should be in America's self-interest. Apart from, a small number of asylees and refugees, we don't know anybody entry to this country that should be on our terms. I liked that he wants to change the focus of our immigration system towards high-skilled labor with people with English skills, because our current immigration status quo of mass, low-skilled immigration is imposing enormous costs on taxpayers and is resulting in second and third-generation immigrants getting sucked up into underclass culture because they do not have the cultural capital.
He focused a lot on the crime problem with illegal aliens, and he had some of the angel moms come up and talk on stage. I felt this should have been a bigger part of his campaign all along, because it is something that needs to be addressed.
Yes, although, to be honest, Mark, the real crime problem with immigrants is in the second and third generation. Nobody wants to talk about this, but they're getting sucked up into underclass culture. The incarceration rate for Mexicans, for example, jumps eightfold between the first and second generation. It's the kids and grandkids who are getting sucked up into gang culture. Now, that's not to say that there aren't, among the first generation of illegal aliens, serious criminals and people who are absolutely destroying the fabric of their community with graffiti, littering, and above all, drunk driving. And there should be zero tolerance, as Trump said, for anybody who commits any kind of crime. Right now, every bill for amnesty that has been provided will say, oh, well, it's only for the law-abiding. And then when you read the fine print, you learn that you get 2 misdemeanor convictions, and that's considered law-abiding, which gives you some sense, perhaps, of the degree of law-breaking among the illegal alien population if it's needed to have this 2 free bites of the apple to get amnesty.
Yeah, that's a good point. Let me move back to the crime here at home issue for a moment for our major cities like Chicago, and I think I read yesterday that Milwaukee just maybe set a record for homicides this year. This problem doesn't seem to be going away, and the city leaders in these towns are in complete denial. Yesterday, I had a story with a couple of legislators from upstate Chicago who want to force all bullets to have serial numbers put on it that are sold in the state of Illinois so that they can get to the root of their violence problem.
Well, it's crazy, Mark. They're coming up with every explanation other than the real one for this crime surge in cities with large black populations. The reason is cops are backing off of proactive policing under the false narrative that the Black Lives Matter movement has put out there and that President Obama has amplified, that cops are racist. So cops are not engaging in pedestrian stops or low-level drug enforcement or misdemeanor enforcement, and criminals have become emboldened. The explanations that politicians and the elites are putting forward, things like even Eddie Johnson in Chicago says, well, it's because of too many illegal guns. Well, that explanation ignores the fact that nothing has changed in the illegal gun trade over the last 2 years. What has changed is the atmosphere for law enforcement, and it's that change and officers feeling like they're not going to be supported for proactive policing that is leading to this horrible, horrible homicide and shooting surge that is taking almost exclusively black lives.
We're talking to Heather MacDonald, who's the author of the book, The War on Cops, and she's a fellow at the Manhattan Institute. So when we talk about that crime level and the fact that it hasn't been impacted. I mean, there aren't more illegal guns today than there were 2 or 3 years ago, just as you mentioned. I'm not quite sure how you translate that into this election cycle and trying to make people realize when Donald Trump stands up and says, I'm going to be the law and order candidate, the Black Lives Matter narrative is about reducing responsibility or penalties for crimes, and they're winning. If we're seeing less policing right now, they're getting what they're after. Well,
the Trump campaign wants desperately to come up with federal policies that Trump can do. And, that may be what voters want. But to be perfectly honest, the most important thing that Trump could do is simply change this narrative. It is very important that we no longer have the leader of our country telling cops that they're racist for arresting criminals. Obama goes around complaining about the fact that, as he said, after the Dallas assassination, blacks are arrested at twice the rate of whites. I don't know where he gets that figure, but I would willingly concede it. It's because blacks commit homicide at 8 times the rate of whites and Hispanics combined. What do you expect with that level of crime disparity? Of course, policing is not going to be evenly spread across the population. So the public needs to understand that the most important thing that Trump will do is to stop demonizing the police. Frankly, policing is a local matter. There's not a hell of a lot that the federal government can do about it, but they can stop poisoning the atmosphere in which cops work.
It's an excellent point. Heather MacDonald, I appreciate your time today. Her book out now at Amazon and other bookstores, The War on Cops, How the New Attack on Law Enforcement Makes Everyone Less Safe. Law and Order, I should say. Heather, thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Absolutely. Always love having her on. She just gets right to the root of the issue, and she's got these crime statistics all loaded into her brain, so she gets it.
Get more at 971talk.com.